The Magicians podcast is brought to you in proud association with the Magic Circle, Alakazam Magic, and Gigio.
It is the season finale, it's episode 100. He is the greatest magician of all time. David Copperfield is here on the Magicians podcast. It doesn't get any more exciting than this. Hello everybody, welcome to the Magicians podcast. My name is Richard Young, I am your host, and I sincerely appreciate you pressing the download button on this, the final episode, episode 100, with the greatest magician of all time, David Copperfield. I hope you have cleared your schedule. You have an amazing 2 hours in front of you where you will gain an insight into David and his amazing body of work. So whether you are listening on a bus, a train, a plane, maybe you're in a car or at home, wherever you are listening, you are sincerely welcome. And I want you to get the most out of this interview. My recommendation after you've listened to it is to go and take a look at some of the influences which David mentions throughout the interview. They're all on YouTube and they are absolutely amazing and they all stand the test of time. And also, why not go back and take a look through the archives here? As I just mentioned, there are 100 episodes with some of the world's greatest magicians, and they're just sitting there waiting for you to enjoy. So go back through the archives afterwards and take a look at the other interviews on the feed. And if you really love this one with David, then episode 98 and 99 is with David's two collaborators, Homer Luwag and Chris Kenner. If you have a spare moment, please do follow this podcast on Instagram. We are at The Magicians Podcast. And if you have an Apple device, you can leave this podcast a review after you've listened to it. I would sincerely appreciate it if you do that. For the last 27 weeks, we have checked in with our great friend Alan Hudson each week to find out what's been going on in the world of magic. This week is no different other than the fact it's for the final time. Here we go. Let's talk to Alan. Alan Hudson, it is a big day. How are you?
I'm very good, Young. How are you?
I'm very good, my friend. Very excited to finally be releasing this interview, which we've been sat on for a few weeks. I've been counting down the days. And we should mention at the beginning, actually, that a few people have picked up on the fact that normally each week you talk about last week's episode, which you're not going to be able to do because there is no episode next week. So what I've done, or what we've done, you have already heard this interview, haven't you?
I have. Finally, I've had some benefit from picking up the phone to you every week, and I've had a pre-release.
Yes, you've had a pre-release
of the Copperfield interview dropped early in my inbox this week, so I've heard it already, and it is excellent.
Great, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah,
it is very, very good. Now, obviously, we don't want to give anything away because normally we might chat a little bit retrospectively, knowing that people have listened to it already, so we can't really chat about things that are going to be in it. But can I mention one thing?
Yeah, go for it.
Normally, as regular listeners will know, Hudson has never been allowed to chat to the guests. Never. Right, even though early on I did think that would be a good idea, and let's be honest, I think the podcast could have benefited from it. It could have got somewhere if I'd have been allowed to do that. However, you stuck your heels in and said I wasn't allowed to speak to the guest. But on this one, you did let me ask Copperfield a couple of questions.
I did indeed. I let you speak to him indirectly through me, and you get to ask a couple of questions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I wasn't allowed to be there or look him in the eye or be anywhere within 100 yards of him for various reasons. But yeah, I got to speak to him and ask him two questions. First one, it's a good question, I think,
yep.
And he answers it well. And I won't spoil it, obviously, because people are going to listen to this soon. Second question, I noticed he didn't answer it. And what I'm assuming, right, is Copperfield might be listening to this bit. Right? I don't know why, but he might be. So I'll just put it out there. David, if you're listening, still not answered my second question, feel free to slide into my DMs. Shoot us a message. and we'll chat.
I wouldn't hold your breath waiting for that DM, Hudson. But yeah, no, excellent.
It's been a good series, though, hasn't it?
It's been great, hasn't it? Have you enjoyed it? What are some of your highlights? We said last week we were going to just sort of talk about, looking back over, this was the longest series we've ever done. It was 27 episodes in total. What were some of your highlights?
So highlights, when I got the Magic Week mug. That was good.
So can we just mention this briefly, which is there is now an official The Magicians Podcast mug.
Magicians Podcast mug. Yeah, that's a brilliant
idea. It's an official Magicians Podcast mug, and we were only able to release it now at the end of the season. And it has the logo on, and it's all colour branded up to match with the brand. And then also what's brilliant is it has all 100 episodes. The names of the guests are on the mug. And I had this idea a few months ago that this might be a nice thing to do at the end of the series when we got to episode 100. And they're for sale now on the Magicians Podcast Facebook page. They are incredibly overpriced, obviously, because I was out of control and I upgraded to a red handle and a red interior of the mug, which bumped the price up significantly. But
magicians love nothing more than paying more money for something. Normally, it's for a bit of plastic they're never going to use and they're put in the drawer. So don't worry about that. Magicians love paying a little bit more money for something.
I think you will use these mugs if you're a human being and you drink fluids.
They'll get more use than that card with a little flap on it that you can see when it's close up. That there's about 3 cards stuck together, right? That you've bought. Right, for 25 quid at Blackpool. It'll get more use than that, won't it? So,
absolutely.
Well,
these mugs are not £25. They are an expensive mug, obviously, because you're not really buying a mug, you're supporting the podcast. So, obviously, I arranged all of this before I knew about the amazing GoFundMe thing. So I know a lot of you have already supported the podcast through that, and I'm still absolutely blown away by that. When we spoke last week, Hudson, the GoFundMe was at £2,200.
Yeah,
it's now at £4,500, which is just absolutely incredible. It's blown me away. I've spent all week sending thank you notes to people. I hope you got them. A few of you, I contacted you on Facebook, and I noticed the messages haven't got to your inbox, so check your other message folder. I've tried to contact every single one of you to say thank you for your donations. It's absolutely blown me away. And if you didn't donate to the GoFundMe thing, I completely understand, but now you have an opportunity to support the podcast in a different way by having your very own Magicians Podcast mug, which you can buy on the Magicians Podcast Facebook page, and they're in very limited supply, so I hope some of you will consider popping across and buying one of those.
And they look really good, and I did notice, right, you've ordered 100 of them, haven't you, so
yes,
far?
Yes, there's only 100
There's only 100, limited edition. There's 100 people on that mug, right? If they all bought one each... There's none for the listeners.
That's I didn't think about that. Maybe some of the actual guests will buy a mug too. That would be amazing.
Well, they will, because it's got their name on it.
Hudson, this is my gesture to you, my friend. You've listened 27 episodes. You and I have, put a lot of work into this. And every week, you think about what you're going to say. And I just wanted to sincerely show my appreciation to you for all of your work. You, right, my friend, can
get 10% off.
I was going to say half price. You get a half price mug. That means you're getting it at cost price to me. So
amazing.
Yeah, that's my way of thanking you for all of your efforts. Hey, amazing night last night, wasn't it? We went to see David Blaine.
Oh man, alive! That's one of the best magic shows I've ever seen in my life.
Unbelievable! It was incredible. I'll never forget it. What an amazing magician. A few of you asked me, have I asked David Blaine to be on the podcast? Yes, of course I did. And it's not really what David Blaine does, is it? You can see what his brand is. He doesn't really do things for magicians and stuff. So he's
bad time to ask him though, wasn't it? When he was holding his breath for 10 minutes.
It was, yeah. Well, they let me on stage to look at the tank, so I thought that was a good time to ask
David, hold it up your phone with a notes app on it. Do you want a little chat on the podcast, mate?
Barging the kids out the way that were trying to give him energy through the glass. It was an amazing show. Also, talking of magic shows, Hudson, you said on social media you were going to share a story today of one of, if not the greatest magic show you've ever seen, was when you saw David Copperfield in Chicago in, I believe this was 92?
92, yeah. So I went to America with John Marshall, who does the Magic Carpet Theatre and Sideshow Illusions, that, you know, like the Headless Lady and all those type of things that he's recreated. Now, so I was working with John at the time, and we decided we had to go to America to see David Copperfield, because Alan Allen had written a review of the show in Abra magazine. So Abra magazine is like, it was like an analogue version of Magic Week.
Yes, absolutely.
It used to come out every week for younger listeners. It used to land in the post every Friday, and there was this review. And remember, Alan Allen said, "You must beg, borrow, steal, do whatever it takes to go and see this show." Right? So we did. So we went to America and we saw loads of shows. We saw Siegfried and Roy, Lance Burton, you know, loads of big shows. And then we travelled across America to Chicago. Now, unbeknownst to me, John had got in touch with Jay Marshall, who ran Magic Inc.
Yes.
Do you remember with Lefty?
Yes, I do remember.
So, turns out we were just going to go and meet up with Jay Marshall during the day, because John knew him a little bit, and he said, "Oh, look, I'm coming to Chicago to see the Copperfield show. Would you like to meet up for lunch beforehand?" Jay then said to John, "Oh, you're going to the Copperfield show? I'll get you tickets. You can sit with us."
Wow.
Right. So, amazing. So we were sat with Jay Marshall. Then, as Copperfield came into the audience, he spotted Jay Marshall. He didn't even know he was going to be there. Right? And he just stopped in his tracks. So he was doing a bit where he's coming, clapping in the audience. So Copperfield running down, clapping his hands, going, "Come on, everybody, clap your hands, get some energy going. You know, let's do this." And all of a sudden, he stopped and went, "Hey, Jay, what are you doing?" In the middle of his show, "What are you doing here?" I went, can I see you after?" He said, "Oh, I'll send someone down." So at the end of the show, he sent down this girl with a clipboard, and she said, "David said I've got to come and collect you all." So then everybody else left. We then got ushered backstage. We had to walk across the stage to the meeting area. So there's me looking up, look and see what I could see, seeing what's around. We had to walk across the stage, and then we got took to his dressing room. And I was about 18 at this point, so you can imagine, like, my mind was absolutely blown.
Wow. Yeah, amazing.
So I couldn't afford all the luxury brochures and programs that he had, because they were quite expensive for an 18-year-old who had just blown all his money in Vegas. And anyway, so Copperfield then very kindly, obviously he wanted to chat to Jay, but very kindly then gave me, seeing I was a young magician, he said, "Oh, do you want some of these?" And he got all the luxury brochures out, and another girl appeared with a cushion, and on it was a Sharpie. And then he signed it all to me. And then he had a nice little chat. And obviously, you know, he never met me, but he was just being nice and said, "Oh, did you enjoy the show? Why are you here? Are you from England?" Blah, blah, blah. In that show, so there was the flying, and it was also the first time I'd seen Snowstorm, which he does so well. And do you know what, Young? As a small boy, right, watching magic shows, right, I'd never seen a magic show with a snowstorm. And then, that one magical evening, for the first time, it began to snow. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, no, it's the first time I saw it, and then he turns into the boy and stuff. And it was one of the most magical things I'd ever seen. Incredible. And then, we saw him again in England. He mentions this, doesn't he?
Yes, so we talk about the London shows at Earl's Court in 1994. He came back the following year and did more of like a tour of the UK. He did like Sheffield Arena. I think he went to Glasgow. He did the Hammersmith Apollo in London, where we saw Blaine last night. He played the same venue. And also he went to what was then called the National Indoor Arena in Birmingham. That was where I saw him on that second year's tour in 1995. Hey Hudson, this will make you laugh. So I had 2 hours with David, and obviously I was prepared for the interview, and I was actually so prepared that I decided to handwrite my notes, which I don't normally do. I normally have them on my phone. I had 9 pages of notes. I realised after the interview finished, I got through 2 pages of the 9. So,
really?
You know, yeah, there's another podcast there maybe. Or maybe David Copperfield should have his own podcast and I should just be the host, and every week we could talk about something. I think it would be, there's lots to talk about. So, yeah, listen, I did the edit on this. Obviously, you guys listening to this, we covered as much as we possibly could, but there's no way to cover everything David Copperfield has done in 2 hours. So you'll hear the little system which I came up with for selecting the TV specials. But yeah, there was no way to cover everything. So maybe one day I'll get to interview him again. I hope I do. Listen, let's reflect on the series. We've done 27 episodes. We did talk about this a little bit earlier, but we got sidetracked. What were some of your highlights of this series, of the 27 episodes that we've made?
So, obviously the Teller interview is like, I think that's the one that people have really enjoyed the most, and that's the one that's hit home. But there's others, you know, the Nyman one, you singing with Les Mis, that was good. Enjoyed that bit. Do you know what, the Troy one, I still think is a really good one.
Yeah,
I thought it was really
Troy
interesting.
was amazing.
Hans Clock was a surprise one for me. I didn't think I would enjoy it quite as much as I did, but I think it was one that turned out to be one of the best ones.
Yes.
And McDougal was one that started getting everybody chatting, didn't they? That was a really good one. I mean, to be honest, they've all got the positives, haven't they? They've all got something about them where you go, oh, I didn't expect that, and you know, really interesting. And so I haven't actually got like a top list, but I was just thinking earlier, oh, what were some of the best ones? And even going right back at the beginning, like the Matt Edmondson one.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really good one as well. And that was really early, wasn't it? That was like episode 2 or 3 or something.
Yeah, for me, the last couple of weeks with Chris Kenner and Homer Luwag's been amazing. I absolutely loved meeting the Ehrlich brothers and interviewing them.
Right.
And Matt King as well, I think people really, really enjoyed. I had so many great experiences making this series. Going to Hans Klock's headquarters in Amsterdam was amazing. Yeah, I'm sorry if we're leaving anybody out.
That's the thing. You kind of go. That's why I didn't really want to do a top list, because you feel like, you know, you name everybody apart from one.
Yeah.
You know, and you go, but they're all good. You know, I've enjoyed them all. It's been a brilliant series and a brilliant podcast, and it's a shame it's coming to the end. And anyway, it's I'm pleased to announce we're doing another season.
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
Oh dear. So Hudson, now you're out of work and the podcast has come to its conclusion. What are your plans, my friend? What's next for you?
Well, we are now on the podcast dole, aren't we? So I'll meet you at the podcast dole office Monday morning.
Yeah.
Looking for podcast work. Got nothing going on. Actually, no, it's a lie. I've got something going on. I've got that gig in August.
That one wedding.
So I've still got that coming up. I've got the one at the wedding. Pray to God they don't cancel. And I'll tell you what else I've got going on is Ashley Turner, who is a friend of ours, has started working for a TV company, and he's managed to get a TV show commissioned, which we can't say too much about, but I'm going to be helping on that.
Okay, great.
What you got coming up?
So we're heading back out with Champions of Magic on July the 1st. So we're in Atlantic City in New Jersey for the first couple of weeks of July, and then we're going on a little US tour through to the end of July. And then Champions of Magic's also out in the fall again as well, going all over the United States. So keep an eye out for that. It would be lovely to meet some podcast listeners at a Champions of Magic show. So that's it, basically.
Hey, do you know what? In the interview, can I just say this bit about it? Because I think people might sort of miss it. There's a bit where you mentioned to Copperfield that you've got a little show.
Yes.
And then he says, not so little.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
That's good, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
that means he's been checking you out.
Yeah. Now is the time. This is the moment. Do you know, obviously I love my musicals, and I was driving along the other day and I was listening to the soundtrack of the musical Come From Away that, you know, I saw a few months ago in London, which I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
And there was a lyric in the opening song which I just thought, it kind of feels like this is the moment for this podcast. And the lyric says, this is a moment where the river meets the sea. And for me, having made 99 podcasts, you guys all know this was what this was all about. It was about sitting down with David Copperfield. And so for me, this is my river meets the sea moment. Hudson, you're done, my friend. You are free to go and enjoy your life away from the Magicians podcast.
Finally.
Thank you so much for all of your contributions. It is time to press play on what was without a doubt one of the greatest experiences of my life to date. Here he is then, David Copperfield.
You are here at the start of a moment on the edge of the world where the river meets the sea. Here on the edge of the Atlantic, on an island in between there and here.
So, after 100 episodes, I cannot believe I'm actually saying this. David Copperfield, welcome to the Magicians Podcast. How are you?
Good to be here.
This is absolutely amazing. When I started this project a few years ago, I'll be honest with you, it was always about hopefully one day sitting down with you and talking to you about your incredible life and career. And so if it's okay with you, that's what we'll do today. It should be brilliant.
I'm in.
So if it's okay, we'll start right at the beginning of the story. And I wanted to start actually with your life before magic. So you're born in Metuchen, New Jersey, 1956, September the 16th. You were the only child of Rebecca and Hy Kotkin. What was life like before you discovered magic?
I think I was always a dreamer. I was always trying to figure out what would make a difference. And I didn't know what it was. I loved what I saw on TV. I loved Paul Winchell, the ventriloquist. I loved all the Walt Disney movies. I loved Mary Martin and Peter Pan. Just being consumed in movies and television. And I don't have a New Jersey accent because I learned English on television pretty much. Everybody else talked like people on Jersey Shore, but me, no, because I really watched television and learned how to speak from that. But it was all about that. It was all about puppetry and dreaming and the world of Disney and films, and it was all about that.
So you started as a ventriloquist?
A bad ventriloquist, yes.
A bad ventriloquist.
All based on Paul Winchell. Paul Winchell was this genius. I mean, literally a genius. He had quite a bit of trouble in his life because he was so smart and so brilliant. But he invented the artificial heart. He brought those figures to life. For those of you who don't know Paul Winchell, you know him as the voice of Tigger in the Winnie the Pooh cartoons. He was his idol was Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. In our museum, we have his hall pass from school when he was a kid in school. He beautifully drew Charlie McCarthy because that was his idol. And eventually he kind of overtook him, Edgar Bergen, on TV. He was brilliant, and amazing technician. Him and Shari Lewis were, the king and queen of children's television when I was a kid. And I wanted to do that. That was really amazing. I thought there was so many magicians on the Ed Sullivan Show. There was only a few ventriloquists. That was my impression at the time. And I said, I'm going to do that. That's good. I like this idea of having two characters and all that. And, I really didn't have the talent for it at all. But by doing it, it got me in front of people in elementary school. And it got me the nerve to just get out there and perform. And I realized I really kind of sucked at it. But I didn't have a knack for it. But I kind of did it, and the kids liked me for some reason when I did it.
What was school like for you? Were you a good student, or were you already distracted because you had other loves?
I was an okay student. When I was motivated, I did very well. My son Dylan does well in school, and when he does well in school, and sometimes he doesn't do well in school. When he does well in school, he's just amazing. He does incredible work. And I say, well, Dylan, how come you did so much better this year, getting all A's? And he says, because I tried. And that was the true of me. I think if I had a great teacher and I was motivated. I had a teacher named Mr. Perrone, and Mr. Perrone was a music teacher, not in the school, but he had classes of music outside of it. But he was a tough guy, and he embarrassed me really badly in front of the class. And my desk was all dirty. I'm very opposite then as I am now. I'm very neat and organized. But at the time, I was kind of messy. And he took my desk and turned it upside down and dumped all the papers out and made me sit in the garbage of my mess and humiliated me in front of the class. And in front of Kathy Koff, the love of my life at that time in fifth grade. And then I tried harder, and he gave me all A's, and I went, happily home. Couldn't believe it, So he was one of the best teachers I ever had. Tough love was a really great thing for me as a kid. Whenever I had a teacher, a karate teacher, they gave me tough love. It really worked, and today you can't do that. You can't humiliate and embarrass or slap somebody anymore, which I guess is good. But it really worked for me. It really worked for me, that kind of, that balance of the carrot and the stick. But I did okay in school. If I tried, I'd do very, very well. And my kids are the same.
I've heard you talk before, actually, about your mum was a little bit hard on you, wasn't she, at times, and would, obviously just to encourage you to be the best that you could be. But I'm really interested with your relationship with your mum and dad? Because one of the things I just spoke to Chris about was I find it absolutely amazing that they used to go on tour with you. And, you know, obviously I've toured around a little magic show and I know kind of how difficult it is at times, but that's incredible, isn't it?
The show's not so little. but no, our show, my parents in the very beginning, they were very supportive, but then when I decided to do it as a career, my mother was scared out of her, scared that I'd starve and didn't understand. And my father, I should say, was very encouraging. And because he really gave up his dream of being an actor to feed us. And he gave up his dream of performing, and he really liked doing that. He was talked out of it. And, my mother tried to talk me out of it too, and was really rough on me when I wanted to do it as a career. He always kind of was encouraging, but she not so much. And I really appreciate her for it. It made me really think through things and work very hard at it. And I really thought about all my plan Bs and plan Cs, and that kind of is a good life lesson for me and everybody.
I've got a little game I'd love to play with you, if that's okay. About 50 episodes ago here on the Magicians Podcast, I interviewed my double act partner, Sam Strange. And on that episode, we had a little bowl on the table. And in it, I had a lot of his kind of mistakes in our act. It was quite a funny episode. I don't have that here today. What I have actually is a little glass, which I have stolen from the Paris Hotel, which I will return at some point. But inside, actually, I have all of your TV specials. Okay. And I thought it would be a really amazing thing if we just choose a special and then talk about it, if that's all right. So do you want to choose the first one?
You do it.
You want me to do it? Okay. Interesting. So this is the Statue of Liberty. So I've got some notes on that special as well, which is great.
Let me see if I remember stuff, okay?
Yeah.
I think it began, let's see if you're going to test me on this, okay? It started with me vanishing and appearing in the torch of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And I just was there, and that torch that I was in has now been taken off the torch. Is now in a museum that Dan von Furstenberg raised the money for, and I just was there at the event. And me and Frank Sinatra were both given the permission to stand in that torch because only the cleaning crew and the people that changed the light bulbs were standing in the torch. So I was right next to it with Hillary Clinton last week, literally, at the opening of this museum. And that torch is where I reappeared on there, which was a real cool event. With a big, if we had drones back then, it would have been a lot easier. It was a giant helicopter with a camera hanging below it. So I started with that. And then here's what I remember. I did a thing. Because we ran out of money. We did the statue thing first. Ran out of money, so we had to shoot the rest of the show in Canada because we had no more money left. We spent all the money on the whole statue event.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so we shot everything else in Canada. And it was torturous. It was the Canadians were wonderful and great, but we had Eugene Levy on the show. Morgan Fairchild flew in. We did a story of Emily, which I don't think is my finest hour, but it was a story about there was a movie called The Blue Veil with Ronald Reagan's ex-wife, Eleanor, we'll look it up, where it's about a nanny that takes care of kids, and they finally come back and say hello to her at the end. And I was really moved by this really cheesy movie, so I did a whole magic sequence. I produced a rattle and produced a cane for when she got old, and then all her family comes back to visit her at the end with this production thing. I remember that. And it was okay. It was my effort to do that thing again. It was with Jane Wyman, thank you. She was in it, but she was in the movie, not in my thing. It was a story of Emily, and we did it to some music from Cats. It was really funny. I did a pretty cool thing with a shrinking bag. Eugene Levy got into a bag, and I shrunk him down, and he crawled across the stage.
Brilliant.
We did a thing with Morgan Fairchild, him trying to get her attention and so forth. So I remember that. I remember Paul Harris's the card linking cards thing. It was the Immaculate Connection, right? I think I did it pretty decently. It's not an easy effect to do, but the kind of linking card thing was kind of a nice sequence. I did pretty much his routine verbatim because he really had perfected and had a nice thing around it. And I did a levitation that people thought was camera tricks, and it wasn't. And people like some very famous people thought it was not a fair thing. And then they called me on it, and I explained to them how it worked, and they go, "Oh boy, It wasn't camera tricks. That's really clever because we really worked our butt off for it. It's where the girl flies over the audience. I took the American in Paris levitation that I had done for many, many years, which was kind of a beautiful thing that I was proud of. That combination of that music, the dancing cane and that thing, and we had the girl really nice hoop passes, the see-through curtain behind, and then a big moment where she comes out over the audience. And I think it was a decent thing. What else?
Well, the big stunt, isn't it? The big illusion, the thing that you're remembered for even to this day. I'm really interested, as a magician, the psychology. When you know that the audience knows that the thing you're going to make disappear can't actually physically move. It's not like a train car or an aeroplane. But how do you deal with that, knowing the audience knows that issue, that the object doesn't move?
It kind of didn't matter. I think I realized the power of the big idea when I vanished the airplane. When I put the airplane in the show is a combination of my work and Christian Feschner's work. We collaborated a little bit on that illusion, the vanishing airplane. And it was on a show. It was a really good show. All the other material in the show was really strong material and probably better than the Statue of Liberty show as a whole. And that the illusion was a good illusion. And the next day, people, it was like viral without, it like broke the internet before the internet, the airplane did. And people around the world were talking about that thing. And I said, really, you like that? You know, what about these stories that I did? And I really put my heart into it. You like that simple illusion where the big things disappeared? And I realized, you know, I was kind of hurt by it, actually. I was really kind of disappointed.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because I wanted them to like the other stuff. But I realized then the power of the big idea, the simple idea, the clear message of it. So the idea of the vanishing a statue, when that idea was brought up, it really spurred my imagination because I could not only do something big in scale that is an identifiable thing that people understood, but it also could represent something more than just the magic piece. It could be about a lesson in freedom and to kind of symbolize what the world would be like without liberty. And I contacted Frank Capra, and Frank Capra and I worked after a great amount of effort, because he didn't want me to do it. He wanted me not to make it disappear, to try and fail. This is Frank Capra, who directed It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. He spent hours trying to convince me to try and fail, and that'd be the message. I can't do that. Finally, he did collaborate with me on it, and it could be more than just the illusion. It could be more of the story of my mother coming here and all the opportunities that America brought to immigrants at that time. So it could have more gravitas, besides being a big identifiable object. So I knew that even though they knew it can't move, that the fact that the idea was such a strong thought that it would actually be like the telephone game. You know, you tell your kid in school, one kid tells the other kid, hey, I'm going to say this thing, and it passes down, whispers, and it becomes something else even more expansive on the other. I knew it was going to be like that. So, and I knew that because of the power that the airplane had, and it still sticks in people's minds. Is it my best thing? I don't think it's my best thing at all, but I think the fact that I did it, that I had the guts to do it, and the wisdom to have many layers, that Polaroid Kodak cameras around it. We had, helicopters. We had all these layers that, created more confusion and credibility at the same time. And people do, remember it after all these years. And there was an episode of The Americans, the very popular show here and very respected show, multi-Emmy award-winning show. They did a whole episode on the vanishing Statue of Liberty. I think because the irony of these Russian spies, who were the characters on the show, The Americans, watching in the 80s me vanishing statue with this message. These spies with their kids watching the message of why freedom's important and how it affected those families. And people did gather around the TV, and it was like an event. So that kind of lasted, and I was right about that. Before
you did it, did you think this might be the thing I become known for, or I'm even remembered for?
No. I think I thought every single thing I did had a really kind of understandable, deliverable, lasting message, no matter what. Walking through the Great Wall of China, just the idea of that is a strong idea, because it was built not as a wall on stage somewhere. It was built to keep people out. So it had a really stronger thing. Everything I'm doing in my current show all is that. It's really finding the core message, the strong why in the middle of it, that has to be as strong as the effect is. And that's why I'm still here.
Just one final thing on the Statue of Liberty, which just your memories just of that night when you actually filmed it. Obviously, it's an outside broadcast. Do you have any strong memories of the actual night? Any challenges that happened? Any issues?
There's a million things went wrong. We did it with models and mock-ups. Don Wayne was there. We built models, and the curtain was too small. We had to sew. If you watch the movie, there's a big, like a 4-foot strip on the bottom because all the measurements were wrong. Helicopters didn't show. So there was 2 helicopters circling the thing. Only one helicopter showed up. Pan Am, which was the big airline back then, they traded, their visibility for that. They're out of business, so it didn't work too well. But these helicopters, these giant helicopters, and one just didn't show up. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. But we're used to that. I call it glorious torture because we aim very, very high, and it's not. Was it fun? Absolutely not. It was not fun at all. But it's worth doing, and the end result, if it works, it's fun, and the fact that you did it is fun, and the fact that it may have some lasting meaning, then it's there. But all my idols that I look up to talk about movies that they make, and going back to their room to their wife crying every night, and it's the same. I can't tell you. I really admire all these Judd Apatows and the Will Ferrells and that have the greatest time on the set, and everybody's laughing. I don't know how they do it. It's a different. They say, no, it's great, it's fun. Don't you enjoy yourself? No, it's hard work, and when you're doing something in front of an audience and there's laughs and stuff, of course that's there. But when you're doing something new and fresh that hasn't been done before, there's not a lot of laughs. Yeah.
So to go back in time a little bit, one of the things that I find incredible is that you were 18 years old when you were cast in a musical, The Magic Man, which ran in Chicago for over a year. I believe you quit university after 3 weeks because you had this incredible opportunity. How did that opportunity actually come about? How did they hear about you? And
I loved Bob Fosse. I loved Ben Vereen, who eventually hosted my
China special,
but he was like one of my idols. I saw, it's like watching Gene Kelly on stage, and Bob Fosse's like watching a Vincent Minnelli,
And you taught Ben Vereen some magic as well, didn't you, for a Broadway show?
I took credit for it. I showed him how to hold a pull better. Jules Fisher is a genius lighting person, but also a fine magician. And he did Pippin. He really started this whole moving hands through the smoke, the opening of magic to do. But I was really moved and transformed when I saw Pippin. And Ben Vereen befriended me. I hung out with him and the cast. It's so ironic. There's this Fosse Verdon series that I'm going to watch the final one tonight. And it's my teenage years as I'm watching it, and they mentioned my name on this thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And, Bob Fosse, the actor playing Bob Fosse, Sam Rockwell, mentions my name in the background of the Houdini Copperfield. And I was in high school during that time, so they wouldn't have known me. But it was kind of really, really amazing that all my idols, this Patty Chayefsky, Neil Simon, Bob Fosse, Gwen Verdon, all the people I looked up to as a teenager are talking, just mentioning my name and offhanded comment on this Fosse Verdon thing, which is amazing because that was what I looked up to all those people and Ben Vereen, and took his singing classes from Ben Vereen's singing teacher. I'm 17 years old. And I took ads in Variety, and that ad in Variety got seen by the producers of Grease, who produced the original Grease in Chicago. And they had a show called The Magic Man, which I think was written before the Magic Show was done, but Magic Show was a huge hit of Doug Henning, and I was hanging out with Doug Henning, when I was 16 years old, and he had this, he was living my dream, Doug Henning. He was, Gene Kelly on his TV special. Oh my God, Gene Kelly, my idol. You're taking him for your TV special? And Orson Welles, my idol. What are you talking? You don't know movies. And he's doing all the stuff that I wanted to do, but he had this amazing opportunity, and people loved him. People loved him in New York. But during that time, I took this ad out in Variety, little tiny ad, with my picture, and said David Copperfield. Somebody suggested that name to me, a writer friend of mine suggested, and I did it. And the producers of Grease auditioned me on the Schubert Theater on a set of a show called Over Here, which was written by the Sherman Brothers, who wrote Mary Poppins, and starred the Andrews Sisters and John Travolta. John Travolta was a minor part in that show. He had a song, but I got on stage and I sang and did the Dancing Cane. in this empty theater during the day, and these voices like, "You're hired!" One of those things. And I can't sing at all. I really suck, but I sang enough for a magician. I was a good singer, So that's how I got in the Magic Man.
After the year of the Magic Man, it closes and you go back to New York. I'm interested. Was this probably one of the most difficult years of your career when you look back now, where you're effectively out of work, weren't you?
Totally out of work.
Was it the most difficult year of your career when you look back?
No.
No?
No, it's way more difficult than that. But I think, starving is good. It's good. It's a great time to be creative. I mean, they had all the illusions. They owned it. I didn't own the illusions. Now, slowly, I'm finding them around America. These people that give them these things back to me. The props that I had, the tip-over trunk is here that I had in the Magic Man. Somebody, after 40 years, I have it. I mean, people show up with my sword box I had. I'm finally seeing my stuff again. But I was starving in New York, in this apartment of two of the actresses that were in The Magic Man. These actors went on to write a show called Married with Children, which is a huge success in America. But these actors were in The Magic Man, and they let me and my girlfriend at the time live there. And it was filled with Broadway albums and amazing orchestral things, Bernstein, and I was stuck. I didn't know, what am I going to do? I have no show now. I have no props. What am I going to do with my time? And I came up with really what I do now, which is the American in Paris Levitation was from there, and Psycho, doing the shower scene from Psycho was from there. Doing the Keystone Cops, that was the music from The Boyfriend, this classic Broadway show, or all that stuff is just me sitting there figuring, how do I keep this interesting for me and combine it. Also at that time there was a movie called That's Entertainment, a whole series of movies that Jack Haley Jr., the Tin Man's son, who was married to Liza Minnelli, was producing. It's all these MGM musicals. And man, I was so inspired. So I had the albums from that. I was a theater nerd. I loved it. So to combine that with this magic stuff. And they had Jane Powell sing It's a Most Unusual Day. And what did I do with that? The Zigzag was that. So that was my MGM musical Zigzag, because Robert Harbin invented this brilliant illusion. Everyone had one, the Zigzag. Everyone had the Harbin book. And what am I going to do with it? Well, I'm going to do it as a date with a magician. So it was all that from that time. So did I know where the next dollar was coming from? No. Did I know how to pay the heating bill? No. But it was actually kind of a good time, It's less pressure than when there's high stakes involved and you have deadlines and network executives and the public and ratings. No, it wasn't as hard as that. It was a more beautiful time. But then I figured, how am I going to get illusions? And I figured I could do industrial shows, and I could produce executives.
So this is like, in the UK, we would say it's like a corporate gig, basically.
Basically that, but it would be very themed, which was right up my alley. It would be, the magic of sales or whatever. And they'd have Henry Kissinger talking. They'd have Bruce Jenner, when he was Bruce Jenner, speaking at the thing. And I'd make the president appear I'd do Backstage of the Magician, and the president would appear. I would do the Keystone Cop escape, strap exchange, the assistant's revenge illusion, and it would all be about theme that when you're in trouble you have to work harder and you could escape the corporate environment, and I would do my thing. So it was all kind of themed to tell a story to inspire the executives, and they had millions of dollars they were spending on this. It was crazy money. And Dionne Warwick would be singing at night, and it was.
I heard a rumour that used to basically get them to order the illusions and pay for them, and then you get to keep them afterwards. Is that true?
You want me to do a show? I need illusions. I'll work them off. I will. It wasn't. I was paid. I reimbursed them out of my pay for a thing. So it wasn't. Right. It wasn't one of those deals. It wasn't a Walt Disney deal. Walt Disney would have Pepsi build It's a Small World, right, and then he'd keep it at the end.
Now let's choose another special. This is absolutely brilliant. This is the greatest game I've ever played in my entire life. Okay. This is one of my favourite ones. Okay. The Orient Express special.
What do you want to know?
There's a moment in this special at the very beginning which is just kind of, it's like just a quick thing, but it's absolutely stunning. It's the motorbike into the girls. Where did the idea for that come from? It's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. And it's one long camera shot with no cuts, and really, real proud of that. It's been ripped off by other people. who will remain nameless. But we worked really hard on it, and there's so much involved in it. Mechanical things, there's people involved, timing and so forth. There's a visual transformation from a motorbike to two girls, and with a lot of air all the way around it. I'm not sure where the idea came from, but it was definitely something we rehearsed backstage at Caesar's Palace when they had the Circus Maximus Theater, and just played around. Could we make women feel like a motorcycle underneath? So could you really get the shape kind of in a philobulous way? The dance troupe or a Mummenschanz, can you make them look like that? And once we got to look, two girls to look like a motorcycle underneath, just physically then you have to figure out how to get rid of the motorcycle and get the girls in place. But I love visual transformations, and it was just nice, tasty message. And the way that whole piece starts out was that you see a magician's shadow of a magician walking towards the thing in the classic Herman sense of the top hat and things, and I come riding back
through the smoke
of the motorcycles.
Brilliant.
It's not going to be a normal magic thing, and I come out and I have to get a couple passengers to appear. So that's what we did.
Something you just touched on then, I wanted to talk to you about. The amazing thing about all of your TV specials is the integrity of the fact that they are all done in front of a live audience. And look, I'm a magician. I know that they are real illusions. Not like a lot of what we see on television today, where magicians are doing cuts, doing edits, doing lots of pre-show work. And how do you feel about that? Does it frustrate you when you see other magicians cutting corners like that when you never did?
I got accused of it a lot. Blackstone Jr. went on the news and said David Copperfield's using all these camera tricks. And I would call him up when he said it, Doug Henning, and say, "What are you talking about? I never say anything bad about another magician. What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, that thing you did with the father and the fire escape." And the father came out, and the fire escape, opened up, and he disappeared there, and there's two barrels over here, and the father appeared in the two barrels. Obviously, you cut. That guy went there. And I said, "Harry, it's twin men." "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." Then go back to the press and tell them what you did. A good friend of ours, talked about that levitation, that whole levitation over the... I explained to him, "Oh, okay," because we worked really hard on that stuff. Do we push the envelope a little bit? Do we make it so? But every single camera, if somebody was there, they would see the exact same thing there. And we had our own set of rules that were there, but we didn't... we worked hard on it. Everything, there was no easy way out. Let's put it that way. I don't know. There has to be value. If there's value in some way, I worked really hard to make even the commercials I did, all the Kodak commercials. Who watches Kodak commercials? We worked really hard to make them legit. This Kodak, you shoot a picture of me, then I appear in the tree and the girls in the thing. It's all one shot, no cuts. It's amazing. We worked hard.
Homer, on his interview, talked about one of the Kodak adverts where there's a levitation, but just a moment before the levitation happens, someone walks through the back, and it's all legit, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's great. It's great. And nobody appreciates it. And a lot of magicians at the time thought it was camera tricks. And it's not. It was really real. I do it not because of the integrity of it. I do it because it's, to do it right, just to feel it's worth doing. I mean, in my generation, it was Bewitched, and I Dream of Jeannie, and all that, and it was too easy. It wasn't magicians doing this stuff. So now there's a little bit of that. There has to be a value. Somebody has to really like you or feel sorry for you or something to get away with not putting in the time. And we did put in the time.
So as this is the last commercial break, I thought I would make it fun. There are 4 pieces of David Copperfield music used over the next few minutes. If you can identify the 4 illusions that these pieces of music were used for, I will be mighty impressed. And if you get them all, let me know. This is the first one. It's actually quite difficult. This had a few different pieces of music used for it over the years, and this was the music used for the TV special. Do you know which one it was?
Magicians podcast brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
Yes, it's so long since I've been home. Seems like there's no place to roam. Well, I've sailed around the Horn. I've been from San Jose up to Baffin Bay, and I've rode out many a storm. Yes, sir. Angelina, Angelina, please bring down your concertina and play a welcome for me, cause I'll be coming home from sea. Yup. Angelina, Angelina.
Whether you're new to magic or a seasoned professional, Alakazam Magic are here to help. Alakazam have been supplying magic to magicians for well over 20 years. Not only do we carry all the latest and greatest magic tricks, books and DVDs, but we also manufacture one of the finest ranges of magic tricks in the world. The Alakazam name is synonymous with great customer service, educated advice and honesty. So if you're shopping for new magic, make sure you check out our website www.alakazam.co.uk or pay a visit to our fully stocked shop.
And when you visit the Alakazam Magic website, you can also visit the Alakazam Online Magic Academy. It is a fantastic new way of learning magic. There's new content every single month, and also there's a fantastic community building up on there too. So whether you are a full-time professional magician looking for a new routine, an amateur magician, or maybe you're even brand new to this wonderful hobby, there is something for everybody. Take a look at the Alakazam Online Magic Academy right now.
Free for 30 days. Be a pro. Get Gigio.
I mean, just to be clear, David Copperfield never used that piece of music there. Obviously, that was just for the podcast. My friends, it is time to talk about Gigio for the last time. I'm going to miss this. If you don't have Gigio, honestly, what are you playing at? Okay, call yourself a magician. You can't be a magician if you don't have Gigio. Top professional magicians love using Gigio to manage their bookings and admin. It's an easy-to-use web-based software that takes care of your inquiries, contracts, invoices, payments, and reports. You can generate professional PDF contracts in seconds and allow your clients to agree them online quickly and conveniently. It will even automatically update the diary on your phone. Read what other top professional magicians say about Gigio and take a free 30-day trial right now at getgigio.com. GetGigio is spelled GetGigio.com. So we're talking about these TV specials. They happen because you met a man called Joe Cates who, well, let's be blunt, he spotted your talent, didn't he? And put you on, first of all, as the host of a show called The Magic of ABC. What are your memories of meeting Joe? Did you realise he was going to be the guy that was going to give you your big break?
I thought it was going to be a guy named Rollins and Jaffe. They produced all the Woody Allen's movies, and I got this big break to go see these two guys. They produced all the Woody Allen movies. They had Robin Williams. They had, just the biggest stars, comedy stars and so forth. And I went up to see those guys, and I said, okay, this is going to be, they're going to get it. And they said, no, we don't get it. You go see Joe Cates across the street. He's got these, international Showtime shows, and he's doing Steve Martin specials, and but he's a guy that probably. And I went to see him, and I showed my tape that I made from The Magic Man, of all the clips and outtakes, and I said, here's my idea. I've got, I'm going to do the shower scene from Psycho. I'm going to do A Date with a Magician. I'm going to do that. And he went, okay. I get it. That's context. And Doug Henning was out there doing a terrific job on that thing, that very specific thing that he did. The Godspell-y kind of guy. Reference of another Stephen Schwartz musical, Godspell, this flowers and flower child thing. And I said, no, I'm going to be the MGM musical guy. I'm going to tell stories like that, or tell personal stories about my girlfriends or my, relationships. And he got that 100%. He brought me to ABC, and I knew nothing what I was doing. On movies, they go, I don't know what to do with my hands. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I didn't know anything. And everybody walked in there, Donny Osmond and Marie, who were a little bit younger than me. They knew what they were doing. And I said, oh my God, I got to get to work. So the show was a real learning experience for me, because I had no idea what to do. I knew the idea of doing these stories in magic would work. I knew that I could be kind of this young guy doing this stuff, but I didn't know how to work a camera or lighting. They didn't know what to do with me either. They put me producing cards in front of a white background, producing playing cards in front of a white background. And I watched this afterwards, and I go, I better learn how to light things. I better learn how to put the scenery. I better learn the writing, because they know how to do music shows. They know how to do comedy shows. They don't understand magic, and for magic, you better understand every single thing. So I got a big education on how to direct television and how to light television, how to build the sets and make the sets enhance the magic. Every knock was a boost in that way.
Did it almost become part of the picture when you would agree to do these specials, that you would sit and do the edit? It's certainly with some of the later specials, you can just see you're sat in the edit. You can see a magician has edited these illusions to look the best they possibly can. When did that first come in?
From the beginning.
Yeah.
From the very first one. I was there for everything. But I would sleep at the studio. I would sleep at NBC. We'd shoot CBS specials, renting NBC studios. And I would live there. At night I'd wake up and I'd go on the set and I'd literally get a ladder and adjust lights and do totally illegal, turning on the light bulb and setting the thing and looking through a lens and doing a eyepiece and staging every single shot, and that's what I do. That's what I learned to do it. And I'd work with the lighting designer. It was a guy named John Freshy to begin with, and then Bobby Dickens later came along, and I would just work with them, and I knew exactly what I wanted, and I would learn from them. They'd learn what I knew, because I would know. To be fair with magic, you have to have the light underneath stuff and have depth behind, all the stuff that I kind of developed for myself just to make it look decent.
And so the extension to this is when you appear on TV shows like Letterman, Arsenio Hall, Oprah Winfrey, America's Got Talent. You're then going into a big production. How do you explain to them, we need to oversee everything the camera sees?
I'm lucky enough that those directors that do those shows knew my work and knew that I collaborated. We all knew, all the directors knew each other. So even today, when we do, country music award show or whatever, the directors know me very well, and they know, the lighting people know me, because most of them I had worked with before, maybe have done my specials and so forth. So even when we did talk shows, when I would come in, they'd be excited because they'd be able to do something that wasn't just another musical act, wide shot, close up, dissolve. It was like, we're going to tell a story here. So it kind of woke them up a little bit. And I'd have everything storyboarded beforehand. I'd say, you can change it if you want to, but here's kind of the direction we think you should go. What do you think? And collaborate with them, give them a chance to add whatever they wanted to add. But I say, here's the minimums of it here, and I'd have videos of how we did it on the specials. And if you look back and see some of the ways we shot illusions for specials, and you see me on an Arsenio show, or or Merv Griffin or Mike Douglas or whatever show, you'll see that pretty much matches the shots, because they kind of copied the same shots we did, because I said, don't you think it's good? And the way it was lit. Not all the time. Sometimes it was hurry up and next. But most of the time it was a really mutual respect, because, we had a lot of Emmy Awards, and there was a lot of mutual respect.
You mentioned one in particular, and I just wanted to touch on it because it's one of my absolute favourites, was the Country Music Awards. You made Taylor Swift appear in your elevator. I often show this to friends as an example of the perfection of your work, just in terms of how it's every twinkle of every light, every movement you make, every movement the prop makes. Again, you're going in, it's an award show. They've got lots of things going on, I imagine. And also, did Taylor come to you, or did you pitch the idea to Taylor Swift?
CBS came to me.
Right.
And she came here, she rehearsed here, our museum here, and she was very professional. Really works really hard. You see why. She's not an accident. She's a hard-working person. So she's great. And it was every single shot was a collaboration between me and the team. Most of them I worked with before.
You look great in a cowboy hat, by the way.
There you go.
There's one in particular, these specials, I'm really hoping comes out of this little pot. So I want to talk about the Bermuda Triangle. I'm going to explain why. First of all, as a kid, it's the first TV special of yours I saw. Wow. It was shown on ITV in the UK just after Christmas. Obviously, I'm a kid. I VHS record it, watch it over and over again. Absolutely loved it. Then years later, I hear you say in an interview that it's kind of not one of your favourite things. And I mean, to quote you, you've said it was a bad career move. Why? I thought it was brilliant.
What did you like about it?
I loved
What do you remember about it?
I remember the whole storyline the way through the special, in terms of you explaining. I didn't even know what the Bermuda Triangle was. I was a kid. So you pitched the whole idea of, what it is and its history, and then you plant the seed. Obviously, I didn't realise at the time of this boat that disappeared. I understand it was one of the most expensive things ever made at the time. It was over $1 million to create the final bit, and it was filmed out, in water. I just loved the production of it. The vanish in the pyramid, I still think is one of your most stunning vanishes you've done. Second only to the portal vanish, which I think is the best one. Yeah, I absolutely loved it, but I'm interested to know why you don't feel that way about it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the whole show is filled with really great, innovative moments. On that special, Death Saws on that. Special.
Amazing.
And that's a keeper. That one's a keeper.
Yeah. There's lots with Webster.
We did Baby Websters. We did the Chicken, the Duck, and the Chicken.
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
There's our version, which has been stolen also. In different Got Talent shows. We spent a lot of time to make that thing work. The idea of switching the heads. Poultry in Motion, horrible title. What else was on that show?
Oh, there's some montages, aren't there, where you're out on a boat, and also you do Don Wayne's floating match as well, which is amazing and looks like a camera trick again, but isn't. Mm-hmm. You kind of really get into these montage ideas where you're actually out on location in this special, which doesn't become a regular thing on many of the specials. Is there a reason why? They're little movies, aren't they?
It's a place to put stuff that you think is good in its own way, but you can't build a whole routine around it. There's a little floating, me floating on the beach with the vanishing feet and me floating and the sunglasses appearing on, maybe not the greatest. But I think, but you're right, the pyramid thing, it looks good, right? That's a good moment.
It's incredible.
That's a good thing. There was the production of the boat. It was real torture. My friend Kevin Bright and I almost had a fist fight. It was Kevin Bright who created Friends, a little show called Friends. He was a producer on that. We got into almost fisticuffs there because I was a big jerk, and the tension was really high, and so much lawsuits and money and putting pylons in the ocean, and just really, it was just not a pleasant. And bugs, never add water. When you ever add water to anything, any movie director will tell you, if you add water to it, it's disaster. If you do anything outside in the water, it's 4 times the money and everything can go wrong. And that was the situation here. There was moments of it I think were good, but overall, it was not one of my favorites.
What point in the process did you realise that you weren't happy with it? Was it when you sat down and did the edit, or was it before you got there? What was
being there and working on the water and losing light and not being able to get everything shot, and having storytelling that wasn't as clear as you want it to be, and the boat not looking big enough in my taste for all the work that we were doing. And it's just, again, you're only as good as you dare to be bad. I read that once. You're only as good as you dare. So always dare to be really bad. And sometimes you're bad.
You're right, though. This is the special where the death saw is the process of that. I mean, it's considered and been voted actually in TV shows in the UK the greatest magic trick of all time, in top 100 tricks and things like that. What was the process of that trick being designed through to its first night on the stage?
Andre Cole and I played around with a different kind of body position for a sawing thing. So it would be a visual sawing like a buzzsaw, but you could split the part in half where you're facing down instead of up. we sat in hotel rooms and kind of configured different positions. There was something similar to it in a book called Illusion Sesame, with mirror tables or mirror boxes and stuff like that. But we were trying to make not having mirror tables and figure out a way to do that with living objects, not fake feet or whatever. So we spent a lot of time. I did it alone. I did it with Andre's help. And I finally had an illusion look pretty good. And I said, that's not enough. We need to make it. This is too good to just do it as a sawing. Let's make it a escape so that the sawing is a surprise. So really mislead the audience. So the storytelling is the fact that I'm going to escape, and they're rooting for me to escape, and I fail, and I get sawed in half. That's a really good idea. And so it goes wrong, and I'm cut in half, and then I get split into two. That's another surprise. And then, so that was good. So I worked on that for a while, and then say, okay, what's the logic of going back together? How do we restore the situation? So the next layer was to turn time backwards with a clock and gesture and have everything reverse in time. So that's pretty good. That's good work. And I remember doing it on tour for the first time, and people that were like not knowing what to expect. And I remember Mark Wilson coming to the show, and he didn't expect it to go wrong and to be cut. And then when I got split apart, he was like visibly just couldn't believe it. And this is a guy that did lots of TV specials and worked with Alan Wakeling's Illusions and stuff and so on. And to watch people not knowing, the first 6 months is an amazing thing when you watch people's reaction when they don't know what to expect. It's happening today, with the stuff that's groundbreaking in my show now, where you're taking them to another place. And after a while, a year into it, they kind of know what to expect, and you kind of don't have it. But the first moment of things like that, and Death Saw is a really good example of that, where it's really misleading even magicians down a certain path, and they just don't know what to do. And so that was a great feeling. That's one in a series of those kind of reactions that you really live for, to take even people who are your peers to have them be really surprised by something. And this current show that I'm doing is filled with that. And we're getting out of that 8-month period of where all the people at Magic Live go, oh my God. And then the next year, we kind of know what's going on. So you have to start again with something new. I don't really work hard to fool magicians, but when we have that experience, it's kind of nice.
I know there's a lot of my listeners that are really, really excited to hear you talk about this. In the UK, your shows in 1994 at Earl's Court are just legendary. They're still talked about to this day. The people that were there have never forgotten it. But I have heard a rumour that perhaps you weren't very happy with the venue when you walked. It was a big place, wasn't it?
It's a horrible place to do magic.
Was it really?
Yeah. I mean, it's this giant, long thing, and they're watching. Most of the people are watching on screens on the way back. But it's not just like a rock concert where you're watching on screens. It is a long tunnel. We came back a few years after that and played Labatt's Apollo. Fantastic. I mean, night and day difference, Tim Rice would come to see you there. Lady Di came to see us there. And it's a glorious place to work. But to sell out Earl's Court, I think 12 times over, which was really an amazing thing for a magician to do. George Michael came to see us there. But it was, really tough, the tough press. You British press is really tough. Elton John came to, don't listen to it. They were really rough on me. There was an article in some magazine recently, a magic article that said he got bad reviews. I got great reviews, but personally they attacked me every day. Just to, they talk about my fingernails being manicured and fake tan, and it's like what? It's like crazy. It's what. And I ended up, it was great because I took a full page ad when I left, and I said, thank you for the press for treating me like royalty. It caused so much interest, all that negative, not about the magic, not about the show, but just personal stuff they found, that it created so much attention that no press is bad press, I guess, in a way, but I hated it at the time.
How did you find the British audiences? They are quite different, aren't they? A bit quieter, more reserved.
It depends on the venue. At Labatt's Apollo and Hammersmith, it was great. In Earl's Court, it's like it's the wrong place to do it unless you have a big ego and you want to say I sold it out, 12 times or whatever it was. Like, the people are awesome in England. They're awesome. The press is rough. That's what they do. That's the whole thing.
I recently found out, actually, I saw your last ever show in the UK. But it was the first time I saw you. So I saw the last ever show, which was in Birmingham on the day after your birthday, the 17th of September. 1995. Why did you never come back? Was it the press?
I'm not sure. You travel around, and it was something great to do. A giant place to play, the right place, and it just didn't work out in the route. I mean, I've been to Germany many times, and my business model right now is here. I'm doing big things in a place, and I'm able to develop really innovative stuff and do what I do without having to worry about how to ship it around, and it's a lot financially, fiscally more responsible.
Yeah, you were touring for years and years and years.
40 years.
It's unbelievable. Like when you look at your schedule, and also that you were creating a TV special every year. Where did you find the energy? I mean, that is. I know it seems like a silly thing to ask, but it really is when you look at it, and especially as the years go on with these TV specials, they just get better and better and better every year, even though actually you're working harder and harder and harder. In theory, you'd think that the quality would go down a little bit. Did you grow your team so there was more support?
Well, we had different teams. The Chris and Homer team is the more recent stuff, and I think because of their background, their strengths really weren't in stage work. There was more in the close-up area and design. So that was really, we're both learning stuff. They were teaching me about stuff that weren't my strengths, and I was teaching them. So that kind of dynamic really transformed how we did things, and that's why the last specials looked like they did. But even the early specials, during Don Wayne time and Gary Ollett time, and all that thing, I was the constant all through those periods. And you try to find the best people that can contribute a new vision and also take your vision in a direction that's as high a level as you possibly can. And my whole thing, everything I do is that, where it's the islands that I have, it's to get it to be the best possible islands. And it's the same thing with every piece of magic. We wanted what could be the best rope routine I could think of. We just watched the rope routine that I did. I've seen there's actually better rope routines, I think, but I think at the time that was a pretty good one. The rope thing with the scissors and the girl being the hero of that thing, or what could be the best levitation? It was flying. What could be the best sawing? It was that. It was the death saw. What could be the best metamorphosis thing? The best metamorphosis. Jonathan Pendragon was he nailed that illusion. So I went to him and I said, here's my improvements on it. I'm going to do this cocoon thing. Can we work together and show the speed factor that you did? And he was really gracious, and he really understood that as a gymnast and as a stunt person. He really, and his wife at the time, Charlotte, did the greatest version of that. Well, I did my greatest version of that, which is the cocoon thing, to separate the locations from where we are. It's pretty good still. So it's really trying to, how do you make it the best it could possibly be? And I think we got close from the categories.
But where does that mindset come from? You've said over and over again there, it has to be the best. So you look at all of these illusions, your body work is unparalleled, but every single time, whatever you touch, it becomes the best version of that that's ever happened. Where does that come from in you? Is that from your childhood?
Yeah. I mean, it's everybody I admired. I admired people that were just relentless. Bob Fosse, relentless. You see the work; it's unbelievable. Today, go back and look at some of those dances and those stagings and those movies. It's beautiful. Francis Ford Coppola did my Broadway show with me. Working people that are they will stand the test of time. My idols were not other magicians. The idols that were magicians, Ricciardi was, an amazing performer. Didn't invent anything, didn't create anything new, but just as a performer, still, he's just like, the body movements are fantastic and very inspiring. How do you get to that level? You talk about other magicians. everybody did linking rings. Tinkling and Vernon's linking rings. It's good. It's all right. It's fine. Clink, clink, clink. Richard Ross, beautiful. It's fantastic. There's very few magic moments that are like that, and you find those things that are like, oh my God, like Ricciardi's Bloom Levitation or Richard Ross, the linking rings, just stuff that's really amazing, beautiful, and it usually exists outside of magic. It's seeing Citizen Kane, Cabaret. It's seeing The Godfather. It's seeing, these movies that are just breathtaking, that inspire you. Say, okay, that's in this area that I look up to. That's what I love. How can I make that happen with this art form that I'm decent at? I'm good at. And the fight for that is the journey that I continue to fight every day. How do you get it to be that good? In my show now, every single thing is, we have Lysander had he's obviously the floating table guy, beautiful, looks like real magic, fantastic. But he had a thing where it was a person. And I said, okay, that's good, but I've been, floating. We had the floating girl in the red thing that collapsed in the air.
Amazing.
I did that on stage. How do I take Lysander's thing and make it thing? So I gave it to Chris and Homer and I made it happen in the audience to make it happen. How do you take magic to a new direction? That's new, to have a levitation of a spectator, in quotes, in the audience where the person vanishes, surrounded by the audience. Well, that's worth doing. That's worth spending your time on. So we spent 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was, getting my half of it. My half was to have it in the audience. So you take Lysander's thing and you put it in the audience. So I bought the exclusive rights from Lysander and we did it in the audience to make it really great. So that's the first thing they see in my show where I'm actually doing stuff. The whole lottery piece. I mean, what could be the best big production of an object? The car is pretty much the best production of a big object. In that category, it's surrounded and so forth. The car illusion I'm really proud of it because it's really hard work. We debuted it in Beijing, China, and our producers came in and says, well, they gave their explanation of how it worked. And we were really pissed about it. And then we went back to the hotel and said, maybe people are going to think this explanation. And we changed it. We made one change, and then it was the greatest thing. Again, that torture of hearing that thing, even the guy, I think the guy was really ridiculous. How can you possibly think that? By the way it's constructed. But we made that change, and it was like it transformed it. When Christopher Nolan came to see the show, that's the thing he talks about in interviews. That car appeared 3 feet from me. It was people underneath it, around it, and it was in 2 seconds. Really good. There'll be smaller things in the show that'll be suggested. There's a balloon thing I have in the show, which a friend of mine suggested to me, and I bought the rights from him for this balloon. People like it, but it's different. It's worth doing because it's in the audience, and it feels different from other stuff. How do you make it feel different? Then the entire alien sequence in the show. What do I do? I mean, what do you do that keeps it interesting for me after that much stuff that you've done over that many years? When it's really new stuff, how do you do it? Well, you go back, okay, what did I love that I haven't done? I loved Topo Gigio. Do you know who Topo Gigio is? He's the Italian mouse on the Ed Sullivan Show. There was controlled with guys, a bunch of guys behind and women, with black art. Look up Topo Gigio, and it says, and the whole America was transfixed. They'd see the Beatles and they'd see Topo Gigio on the Ed Sullivan Show. People go, oh my God, this Italian mouse. I've never done that before. I have a relationship with a second character. You act as a second character thing with your partner. I've never had that. And to have a relationship with a little puppet thing. And I love Pixar movies. Pixar movies are great. And just what they do and how they formulate the stories and make it emotional. I said, if I do that, if I can get that to work and have a death scene, and I can have a relationship and I have the character and so forth. And we started to do this thing, and everybody hated it. They hated it. And I kept working on it, and took great solace in the fact that in a Pixar movie, they'd fire the director, and 5 years later, they'd finally change the story 3 times, and then you'd have Inside Out, or you'd have Ratatouille, or you'd have these great movies. That was and I spoke to all the Pixar guys, and John Lasseter came to see the show, gave us notes. Really, I mean, people that I just look up
I've
to.
also heard Frank Darabont came as well.
Frank Darabont rewrote the whole thing. So, I mean, there's the guy that wrote
The Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption.
Wrote that thing, right, exactly. And Mike Reiss wrote all the jokes and the comedy in it. He was one of the big Simpsons writers. That collaborative thing was really based on Pixar excellence and Shawshank Redemption excellence. But the magic's got to be good. So, okay, how do you make that innovative? You have to make a mentalism effect that proves you went back in time that will fool mentalists. And, for 4 months it did. After a while it doesn't. But that's the glory of those 4 months. And the methodology is 100% original. 100% this poster effect. You're sitting in a place with all the magic books and all the magic history and every single list thing from every guy's. It doesn't exist. So every single piece of mental magic that happens, I think, is 100% written from nothing. And happening with a 2-person character with an animated robot. It's going to last for a half hour of the show. Oh my God, this is really ridiculous. It's aiming really, really high. And then a spaceship appears. So how do you do that? And make it with no cloth, no cover, and just it's going to appear and fly over their heads. This doesn't exist. And, when people leave the theater and they know they've seen something different, that's worth doing. That's worth doing to somebody that tried and failed over the years and did Statue of Liberties and airplanes and flying and all that stuff. That's worth doing. It's worth doing only because it didn't work for a long time. And finally it works. And finally people like it. And people, love the character and are amazed by spaceships and amazed by the mentalism stuff. And, that's the story.
You talk about people didn't like it for a little while. I assume you're referring to TripAdvisor reviews. It's kind of the world's changed a little bit, hasn't it, with stuff like that?
I think the audience didn't like it.
Wow, okay.
It's just like everybody knows you can do a magic effect, and they can think and you could buy it at Murphy's or Theory 11 or wherever you want to buy it on the thing, and you can do it for something. They think, oh, you're the greatest magician in the world. It's the unfortunate reality of magic. People can buy something or get something, and they'll do it in front of their face. It happened in my own hands. That's better than anything I saw, whatever. Because they don't know magic. People don't know it. You're taking them out of their context. But they know storytelling, and they know characters, and they know feelings. And if you have to get it right, there can be one moment that takes you out of the story. So every single thing that I've done puts me in that category because it puts me vulnerable to criticism. When you do just do substitution trunk, it's like, oh my God, it's an amazing looking thing. But if you tell a story with it, if the story's not good, man, you're screwed. Because they know that. They feel like they know it. Now put a character into it, an animated character that says, you don't get that right, then you're really there because they know what's supposed to be good about that. So, and again, it's me just making it really hard on myself, but the end result is worth it because I really accomplished something. I've taken to a really new direction. After I'm done with it, magic will have a new going back in time illusion. It'll exist, and it doesn't exist in the museum. Magic will have giant objects appearing over their head. Didn't exist. It's going to exist now. I've got a dinosaur in the show, right? Frank the dinosaur. Dinosaur, what's the point? What do you think is moving that forward? What is moving magic forward in that? What's unique about that? I will tell you. So this is a quiz.
Are you talking specifically about the trick here? Because there is something I noticed, which is that when the dinosaur appears, it's bigger than the box it's come out of.
Okay, that's one. Good. I'm probably not the first at that. A dollhouse, if you do a dollhouse properly, it's supposed to be bigger than a Blammo box. So I'm not, but this is like 3 times the size. It's kind of like bigger than the thing. Okay, that's one thing. What else?
I'm not sure. Please enlighten me.
Well, it appears over the audience's heads. It comes out 5 rows of the audience.
Yeah.
You've never seen that before. So that was, make it worth, they're really coming out over the edge of the stage towards the thing. That's unique. The technology I'm using is something I invented. You'll have to, the quiz, it comes from another illusion. You know what it is?
No.
Oh, I'm not going to tell you. But it's, but it's.
I think I know.
Please.
Is it the appearance from the Barclay House?
Well, I'm going to shake your hand. You got it.
Did I get it?
Exactly right.
I got it.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That idea of the Berkeley House production of The Three People, of that became The Dinosaur, because I think that was a very strong,
Amazing.
a strong new thing. Again, not from many books, not from many things, timed well, and I think I was really proud of it. We turned that technology, which so far nobody's taken, again, layers and layers and layers and layers. Just having that technology, that routine of how to get something in an empty cabinet isn't enough. We had to have it come out both sides of the box, so it's bigger than the box. It has to be 5 rows into the audience, projecting out of their heads, and it has to be an animated object. Well, that doesn't exist. The idea of having a dinosaur, first of all, the idea of a dinosaur is not something in the books that exist, but also having an animated, moving, and what do you think the point of that effect is at the end of the day? What do you think is the most important thing to me in that effect?
Was this linked to the story with your childhood about
Yes.
the live the impossible and your dreams can come true, the whole theme of the show?
It is that. I talk about the loss of this toy, the loss of the toy not being there. Sort of inspired by Amelie, a little bit, the movie Amelie. A fantastic movie. And she gives this old man, who she doesn't know, a gift by finding his old toys and putting it in this phone booth. And he goes to the phone booth, he opens the toys, and he sees these toys again, he starts to cry. Very emotional moment for this guy. Kind of that feeling of that lost part of your childhood, which is, everything around me is my lost childhood. It's something a theme that projects everywhere in my world. But the idea of losing that toy, which is a true story, it's based on not a dinosaur, it's based on having a lamb chop puppet when I was a kid. Sherry loses lamb chop and burying it in the sand and not finding it and digging through sand, finding it horrible. It's a lasting memory of not finding this important thing that meant so much to me. So I remember that feeling. So the dinosaur, I had to make it, butch it up a little bit. So we made it about a dinosaur instead of a hand puppet. And tell the story about needing that thing and missing it and not having it again, and how I imagined it being bigger. To me, it was a larger thing, which people do, when they're playing with little army men, they imagine those guys huge. So that justifies as being a giant thing when it finally comes out. And the most important thing about that is me hugging him at the end. To me, that's the most important thing.
Okay.
The fact that, when you go to Disney and see animated dinosaurs, or you see, characters, or Figment or whatever, you never see them contacting a human. You see them maybe talking to them in Disney. My thing, if you notice, they're hugging me, and the dinosaur is getting right in my face and being next to me. That's new.
Yeah.
That's new. And when the alien hugs me to be with, the whole audience melts. You audibly hear them going, like, this mechanical thing is holding you, and they're really feeling something for it. That didn't exist. And the dinosaur also nuzzles me at the end. That finally that's the point of it. The missing thing, and there I'm finally, this protector of mine, the dream protector, is finally hugging me at the end. This is as important as how I got the dinosaur in the box.
Incredible answer. And also, can I just be a bit of a fanboy? Just say, the moment when you walk towards the back of the stage and say, it always starts with nothing, hairs on my arms. That's classic Copperfield, that moment there.
Why?
It just took me back to my childhood. It was, Chris explained on the podcast, you've evolved as a performer, you've always stayed constant, but it was this tiny little moment where it was the David Copperfield from my childhood presenting an illusion.
And to me, what that is, it always starts with nothing, is 2 tracks. One track is to say it always starts with nothing. The blank page for a writer, the piano keys for a songwriter, the storyboard, the blank storyboard for a filmmaker. It always starts with nothing is where we begin with everything, right? But it also is my way of metaphorically saying this is an empty friggin' box. So it always starts with nothing is really the track of, I'm going to tell the audience that, remember, this is nothing here, nothing here, nothing here, but it's also not just that.
Yeah.
It is about the creator's quest and what scares the shit out of you. The fact you start with nothing every single time.
That's absolutely amazing. You mentioned Homer. I wanted to ask, I've been a big fan of his work. Do you feel that the alien is Homer's best work?
Which part?
The design of the lighting, the set, You know, I mean, I know he designed the spaceship and everything. Is that? Do you feel that's his best work?
You know, the spaceship is, and both Chris and Homer are Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
They're like nerds. I mean, they're crazy for this. And so much of their spare time was spent on that. Homer draws stuff, right? That's what he does. So the idea of, I don't know what he said, but in the opportunity to him to draw and to create something, he knows that J.J. Abrams and Spielberg and all the people are going to actually see. That was, it's a pretty good opportunity I gave him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like for somebody that's that passionate about that. Every single thing was a collaboration in that thing. Homer's work is shooting the movie, the ending movie.
Yeah.
The design, from a design standpoint. Do you think from a design point that's his best design stuff?
I think 13's pretty. They're so different.
We all, all of us love movies. All of us get inspiration from movies. All of us, sometimes we think, oh boy, I wish I directed that movie. All of us have that feeling, right? Chris's skill is knowing what's bad and what's good, and getting to the core value of stuff, which is an extremely important thing. Homer's values, he's trained his life to draw stuff and to design stuff, and to edit and do that stuff. And this provided a lot of that opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think, when you see shapes on there, it was kind of a culmination of stuff that he really is good at. Spaceships, those things. If you look at the sketch of the hourglass, he'll show you stuff that I'll draw a bad scribble, and then he'll obviously make it because he has that skill to make a thing. You'll see the difference, how it goes from that to that, from a design point. Obviously when we're shooting, movies or films inside there, he's going to be the guy that's going to do that. Lots of collaboration, obviously. Lots of back and forth. But putting the pen to the page is definitely him, and then I'll kind of go, well, what do you think about this? Kind of mush stuff around, which I would do if it was Bobby Dickinson doing it, or if it was, if it was for everybody, with Darabont and so forth. You're going to obviously, if it's your thing, you're going to kind of mold and move it, and where you want to move it. So throughout you look at the time of my stuff. You studied my stuff a lot, so you know that from a design standpoint, I transitioned through lots of stuff, and you can see where Chris and Homer got involved.
Yes,
you can see it's very specific, and we all learned together those things. But prior to them, I would do, what's an example? I've named something before, in the olden days.
Well, how about the one that's actually still in the show, the Shadow Box, the motorcycle Shadow Box?
Right. See, that was before.
So it's built
Homer.
by Bill Smith, and that was from the Explosive Encounter TV special. So this is going right back to 1988, 89.
Right. So that was, that's me going, put some turnbuckles across there to actually misdirect some stuff, to create strength. Every single illusion, the elevator's before you guys, right? Elevator. I mean, that was me finding, me. No, it was loving Lampica paintings, Tamara Lampica images. So, the shape of the slats is based on buildings on the back of a Lampica painting. The Orient Express show was, I think that was also Lampica. Yeah, that's Lampica paintings, that's right.
Flying. Isn't that Lampica?
No, flying was the
girl.
No, it's Icarus and so forth. It's usually taking art, finding a core thing in art. Goes back. We're looking at Patrick Nagel things from that I did on the airplane special. That was the image in the back of the airplane.
It was on the back of the airplane. Yeah.
But that we did a whole special based on his art. It was a painting per thing that would take us on, and that's kind of that's my trying to push people to kind of layer of design, layers of music value, everything's important. That's the title of this podcast. Everything's important. There's not one thing that's not, from every word, every comma. To quote Frank Darabont, he says, every comma is important. There's not one thing that's not. And, going back to that Patrick Nagel that show where I appeared from behind those two things moving.
Yeah, I don't know how that's done.
It's great. And this, again, when you know, you'll go, oh, and that'll be used someday. But that's really great new stuff. You know, two banners, lift it, you see air around it, and I appear. Used it again. Maybe you'll figure it out if you look at the father and son, the mother, father, and son scene where these two sheets did it. I used it again more than once. The whole scene with my parents and going to becoming famous, and with my fake parents, you know. But it was trying to take principles that haven't been done. You know? I don't think people understand that. You know, it's lots of really innovative, you know, stuff that's really new. Yeah.
We mentioned Homer. Last week on the podcast, Chris was the guest, and he sat 6 feet from us, which I didn't expect, which is great. But he talked about how when he came out, first of all, he sort of didn't go home again. I'm interested to know, why didn't he go home? Why was he the guy for you? Why is he now your executive producer?
You know, first of all, I didn't really understand his capabilities. He had two pieces of magic that was like really looked like. Remember I talked about the Richard Ross's rings, or, you know, those things that are like, oh my God. He had a matrix at the time that was like, really looked like magic. It looked like camera tricks. This matrix on the thing. It was pretty amazing. The three fly thing. It's all part of magic history. And then, of course, he had something I could use, which was the little shoe thing.
Brilliant.
And I had done, you know, ring flight on the show, but the idea of using the shoe, that was a pretty good idea. A simple idea. The, you know, the relationship. It's about relationships, and that's what started it all. Caveney said, "You should look at this guy's stuff," and I did. But then he had to feed himself, so he knew about graphics, and he had other jobs that he had to eat, and he had to, you know, he was performing at a place called Illusions. They both were performing Illusions. So he understood comedy and understood, you know, an act. He did his act in my show a little bit. Him and Homer did the act in the show. So it was like really well-rounded stuff. And then he learned producing. He learned it. You know, he didn't know it. He had to kind of figure it out. And he watched people who were also learning it at the time. These guys, they didn't know. They're producing you now, but they were kind of figuring it out. And I was learning too. But I kind of knew what to do-ish. And he finally figured it out, you know. It's the same thing. It goes back to that Magic of ABC special. I had no idea what to do, but I kind of knew what I was supposed to do. And I realized all these mistakes that everyone else was making, and I was making maybe more than them, that I had to learn all these different categories and really get educated. When
you look back on your work, what was the illusion that was the hardest to kind of get to the stage and make work?
It's always the latest thing, you know. The alien thing was hard because people really, they knew when you do a piece of magic and you can kind of fool people with it, you kind of get away with stuff, which is an unfortunate thing for our art form, you know. It's like, it doesn't, you know, a comedian has to be funny and they know what other funny people are, but we get away with stuff that we shouldn't get away with. The alien thing was really because people understood what they thought they should see, and, you know, what makes them laugh, and we should care about story and so forth. And it had to work on many levels, and it stumped really smart people until finally, I think it's 90% there. But we're still changing it, you know, they're still changing it. An example, the Homer thing, I wanted lights all around the stage. Lots of points of light. This is my contribution. But then I leave it to him here, do it, and he'll make it better. Same thing with Chris, you know. I'll have an idea, and Chris will go, I don't think that's good. That's not good. He'll push me to, you know, either figure it out himself or push me to do it. We just had an example of that the other day. We're doing a thing in Washington with the flag.
Yeah, my research might freak you out. I kind of know a little bit about this.
Yeah, you know.
This is incredible. Are you allowed to talk about this?
Yeah.
Amazing. So you're going to make a star appear on do you want to explain?
Well, yeah, the Star Spangled Banner is not just a song. Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner song about a flag that he saw in the War of 1812. There was a guy who, George Armistead, got the flag after it was waving when the bombs were bursting in midair, and his family gave away pieces of the flag as a gift.
It's big. It's not little.
It's the size of this room.
Yeah.
Giant. And one of the stars is missing for over a century. It's supposed to cut out and given to somebody. And I'm going to make it reappear.
Amazing.
So, and we're doing it on Flag Day and naturalizing citizens on the same day to be American citizens. On that day, 15 people to represent those 15 stars. And in a couple of weeks, we go do that on Flag Day. So this will probably not be on until after that. But so Chris looked at that and he said, what's missing is seeing the star in place, in its actual place. Well, you can't put the star in place because it's in a climate-controlled, very dimly lit room. The big flag is. So that flag, the star I produce, will never be in that place. So Chris said, I think for it to be satisfying, you need to see them there.
Yeah, I just said you needed to match up our piece that's missing with the actual visual of the star of the flag on screen, and then you took that and just made all the great zoom it in, make it move. You added the logic to it.
But see, if he didn't say what he said,
Yeah,
I did what I do, and we make it so it matches in the projection. You have the real star that we've appear, and the projection matches around it, so you see it. It's very satisfying. It's the last puzzle piece going in there. Well, that movement of it wouldn't have happened if Chris didn't do what he does, which is he said that.
yeah.
And that's incredibly valuable. It's like this. You get, when you direct something, you have to focus on so many things. To step back takes real talent. And sometimes I have that talent, but sometimes you're so immersed in solving problems you don't see the big result. So that's called collaboration, and that's and that's giving him credit for what it is. And he very nicely said, "Oh, you made it, you improved it in a way, but." That's how it works. You just witnessed it.
And that's why it had to be all three of you on this podcast at the end, because you're just the most amazing collaboration.
It's an amazing team, and we're very lucky, that we found each other, and put in the time.
We put in the time. We always joke that we've had many separate lives. We've had these sections of our lives. It's great.
Yeah, but it's interesting, but it's always hard. it's never going to be easy. I'll tell you that right now. But anybody's honest with you in every single art form, it's like that. I always envy those comedians. But actually, something. Even the comedians, they talk about, the writers' rooms being a tough, combative. On TV shows or comedy writer rooms, the stories of Mel Brooks and Neil Simon and Woody Allen in the Your Show of Shows room, all that, just fighting to do it. It's like, the end result, though, is glorious.
We got this little pot of TV specials. I'm interested to know, actually, do you have a favourite TV special of yours?
I think probably Flying was good.
Yeah.
That was good. I think that the airplane special was good. The last, the special we did in the round, some of the black magic was done in the round. Again,
this was filmed in Memphis.
In Memphis, in the arena there, yeah.
May I ask, with that, I mean, I understand, I think I understand a little bit how some of your illusions work. How did you present them in the round? Was the audience moved around the room to? I know how protective you are of secrets, so I'm interested to know how you filmed those illusions in the round in terms to protect your methods.
Well, some of them were easy, doing the portal thing, the vanish on the arm. That's pretty much surrounded stuff, and that's good illusion.
I mean, I've talked about this before on the podcast. You wouldn't know this. 2006, I saw it here. The first time I saw you here in Vegas, and because I'm, big fanboy, I booked the front row seats, which I've subsequently found out that apparently you don't like those seats, but I booked the front row, and the arm came out over to a point where I had to turn round in my seat and I was looking at the back of it. Well, I know as a magician, if something disappears, it goes up, down, left, right, forwards or backwards. There were people in every direction. It blew my mind, that vanish. Is that your proudest vanish that you've ever done?
I don't know. It's good. Because again, I like it because it really is something that feels new.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. To be over the heads of the audience. What's really new? And when you do that, that's really rewarding. And I think to have it so pretty much surrounded angles in that situation feels that's worth doing. So what is worth doing? I think there's an illusion that shouldn't have worked too. There's an illusion that we suffered over. I wanted to make something transcontinental and to make it credible. Well, it sucked for a long time. And we'd interview the audience every day. We'd go into the lobby and say, and we keep changing all these convincers, you know what I'm saying? The writing on the arm or the Polaroid, all that stuff, and tweaking and tweaking. And finally, people believed it, sort of. They really kind of went with it. And there was a turning point that we, after all these interviews, and we did that illusion first with the eternal restraining cubes.
Hoover Dam.
To Hoover Dam. We used that instead. Before he had the arm thing was being built, we did it with a stack of boxes. Look up the eternal restraining cubes and the James Bondage number with Cindy Williams. And and we did this thing. Was we used that as the vanish to kind of get our arms warm.
We filmed it till like 4 a.m. Remember, we would leave at the end of the show because we don't do shows every night. We'd film it at the Hoover Dam till 4 a.m. Come back, edit, boom. Try to do the show. Oh,
wow!
But that's worth doing, because how can you make an audience believe that you've gone to another place? Do they really believe it? I'm not sure, but they really went with it. You know what I'm saying? Michael Jackson, it's crying when the guy's hugging his father on the thing on the beach. So just sitting in the audience watching that, and finally to get people to go with it. It's just tweaking little changes. The difference between total garbage and something good is a tiny, inches of difference. But why did I do that? Because that was a real challenge. And finally we got it to work after it really being bad for a long time. And finally it was good. And all the details, every single thing had to be exactly right.
Do you want to choose a TV special?
Sure. Okay. China.
Now, I have an interesting thought with China, which is something I watched it this afternoon, actually. And there's an amazing thing with the Great Wall of China, actually, which is that you're actually not on camera for a very long time. You walk into the wall and your crew are doing everything. Talk to me about that. Something a few of my friends have noticed you. I mean, the way you direct your stage hands, you do it better than anyone else in the world. The China is a great example of that.
Jerry Lewis, before he died, he came to the show. And he talked about my assistants. He didn't talk about me. Kind of pissed me off. He says, they're such precision. They're doing all this stuff,
That's
and
interesting.
And these aren't dancers. These are guys that are just young guys that we find and we train. And it's really, having it to be precise and having them to really focus and not take away. There's no women on stage in my show lately, because for decades, it was all about romance and all that, and now it's about romance in another way. It's all about family stuff, and I did that. I did that stuff a lot. I kind of explored every single thing as far as relationships between a man and woman on stage with that. So, but I think the point is, should stagehand be invisible? I think they should be, if they can be. It should be about you and about the work. It shouldn't be about the props. It should be about you. But when you have to make it so it's kind of focusing that journey forward to the final point.
You mentioned the ladies that you used to share the stage with. One in particular, Joni Spina. What are your memories of Joni? She worked with you for a long, long time, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She was amazing young lady. I found her. She auditioned for me in New York at the old Copacabana. It was the old Cotton Club. And I hired her. I had no idea she had any choreography ability. But as I was developing new things, I would include everybody on tour with me. Please find music. Go look for this. Bring me stuff. Bring me songs like this. And they'd bring me stuff, and some of them were horrible. Some of them were great. So she would find music, and we'd stage stuff together. And I found, she understands. She has a feeling for it. And, she knew nothing about magic, but she quickly learned. And I wanted it, MTV was big, before the rap MTV. Normal MTV before that existed. And it was all about women and guys wrapping themselves around each other and, being very erotic. And so I was doing that, and started that trend. It still exists today. And she was really, she understood the feeling, the essence of it. So she was a very, very good partner. Yeah.
You've probably done more magic shows than anyone in history. I just wonder, is there for any reason one show on one night that stands out to you when you look back over all of the years, for any particular reason?
There was shows that Chris and Homer remind me about where I crack up and I can't stop laughing. And I just, and I just literally can't control myself. It's horrible. Medically, I have to go to the hospital because I'm laughing so hard. And they'll remember those moments. I kind of keep going. So I don't, there's certain things. What do you think? What would be memorable shows?
I mean, it's just like girl thrown up in the sawing. I'll never forget that.
The vertical soaring?
The vertical sawing, that's a good invention.
It's amazing.
It's a good. I mean, that's really new stuff. That's you talk about all these, inventors of stuff that are they fantastic. The Harbins, the Steinmeyers, and we invented some good stuff too. And that's a real from nothing invention of, cutting in half with a big blade. Which Homer was the first thing he designed, right?
Yeah, he talked about that on this podcast. Yeah. Also, great music as well for that one.
Yeah. What was it?
It was Seal, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm on top of this thing. Again, we try to, how do you make it many more levels? That blade would hoist me on top of the thing. I'd be straddling on top of this thing. Well, that didn't exist, that look of that visual, icon thing of being there on top of the thing that you're going to saw. I looked down in there and the girls were throwing up. I said, girls, I just revealed the big secret.
Well, I was going to mention something about it, which I noticed. It's on the Unexplained Forces TV special. And on the special, you only show one side at a time. And then what I find incredible is even after it's been on the TV special, you continue to work at it. And that detail is added later where you can show both sides at the same time.
Do I show only one side at a time?
On the Unexplained Forces special, you move, it goes back together, and so it's an amazing...
Intentional.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Interesting. But it's actually one of my favourites. I think the Unexplained Forces TV special is the best one of all of them, but that's just literally subjective in my opinion.
I got letters from magicians about that. That was the Barclay House.
Yeah, incredible.
That's pretty good, right? And all the ghosts flying around, and that's pretty good work. And again, cinematically, just where the camera moves around the back and the fire going off.
Oh, incredible moment.
It's just really, it's good cinematic. The timing of the pyro around the slats and the grabbing of the things.
It also opens with the fan, which stayed in your show for a long time. Yeah. There's an incredible detail with that, which I just literally just go, wow, it's the most beautiful thing, which is when you walk into the fan with the girl, the smoke comes out the other side and you disappear. That looks like a nightmare to have created.
But the thing that's interesting about that is that the smoke portals, when my arm goes in, the smoke is this wide.
Amazing, yeah.
And then when my body comes out this wide, and then the sand, it goes, so it's following, the smoke is following my silhouette, which is pretty good. So, again, layers of good stuff.
This is also a great time to mention that obviously one of the things you've done a lot of is a lot of close-up magic on the big screen. In this TV special is the Grandpa's Aces, which I understand, Chris, you had quite a lot to do with that particular part of it. Does it... I'm interested, all magicians are different. Do you like how much the audience loves a card trick on a big screen? Or do you find it a little bit frustrating when you've created all these big production pieces that often they'll leave talking about a smaller piece? How do you feel about it?
Well, that was worth doing because that's different. That's not just me pulling an invisible deck or a spot card. That is skill and hard work, and there's a lot, and it's taking really hard moves with music and with all that stuff. That's started that trend of that thing. I think musicalizing close-up magic. Our friend Richard Kaufman was in the audience. We love Richard, and he was telling everybody that
it was a pre-record.
Yeah, you heard the story already? Somebody tell us. I
think I know what you're going to say.
So I say, Richard, it's not pre-recorded. It's like I'm doing it live. He said, no, you're not. So then he's in the audience. So we shoot.
I was the cameraman.
You're the cameraman? So he shoots the thing, and then with now slow moves and shoots Richard in the audience at the end of the thing.
So we went from David doing the trick at the end, just panned right over and zoomed straight into Richard sitting there in the front row. That was so great.
I have a co-host on this podcast. He's called Alan Hudson. You familiar with Alan Hudson?
Oh, yes.
I love your answer. So I never let him talk to the guests, but as this is episode 100, I have allowed him to submit a question. Actually, submit two, but this is the question. Actually, it's very good. Maybe I should let him speak to the guests. He basically wanted to know, was there ever an illusion that you spent a great deal of time on that never made it to the stage?
Yes.
And would you be happy to share what that was?
I had a thing called Make Your Own Magician. And it was kind of a mismade magician thing. You have, pieces of, Gumby. You know what Gumby is?
Nope.
Oh, look it up. Gumby, cowboy, a thing like that. And you get all these pieces together, and I'd come out wearing this sequential thing. It was really bad. It was horrible. Never made it.
That levitation, that was fantastic. You just never could get it to work.
We had a thing to do outside, levitation. That would be done outside. It's giant cases out there. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of technology to do it. And it was part of a whole thing we never did. And it sits in warehouse. It's still out there. Yeah. What else?
Fantastic method, too. The hamster, the dirigible.
We had a blimp.
A blimp?
A blimp with a hamster. The hamster would vanish and appear in the blimp with a ring or select a card or something like that. That exists out there.
Part of the Barclay House, that little triangle.
Tons of
little things.
There's elements of stuff that the Barclay House had top of a house that has windows like this, a roof that we had one of the ghosts would fly into that thing, the top of the house.
The silhouette, his favorite trick, in the vanish, the arm. Remember the silhouette?
What silhouette?
The silhouette that you can see the silhouette till the very last bit or a second.
For what?
For the beach arm trick.
Oh, yeah.
That one.
But we didn't use it.
Never used it.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's a great, clever, super clever.
There's tons of paths we took that just never was good enough. Just like many movies and Yeah.
He also submitted a second question, which is, can I stay at Misha Key with my wife for a few weeks? I can't afford to pay, but I'll mention it on the socials. Just ignore that. I'm sorry about him. So here's an interesting thing. We have to obviously wrap this up soon. I'm interested to know, I'm going to mention a word, and just tell me what you think about this word. The word retirement.
You trying to tell me something?
No, I'm not trying to tell you anything, but I think I know that you will never retire. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Yeah?
Imagine that.
No way. It's not even a
What
thought
would you do?
What would I do if I was you?
No, if you would retire.
Yes.
If you would retire, what would you do with your time?
I have actually spoken about this. I would never retire. I think it's a terrible idea. All that's left to do is become nosy and boring and die. So I think retirement is a terrible idea. We had the legendary Paul Daniels on this podcast. I was very lucky to interview him 6 months before he passed away. And, when he died, they had to cancel a tour. I thought that was, what a great way to go, that he was still going right until the end.
I don't know, but who's retired and is happy?
I think people who do very simple jobs, perhaps. I think they look forward to retirement and having
the goal is saving enough money to just enjoy the time.
But I don't think someone at your level, or someone who loves what they do, actually would ever...
We are enjoying our time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about how hard it is. Creation is hard. Performing isn't hard. The performing part is not hard. It's enjoyable. To hear the audience, the benefit of it. And also, I do this to really inspire people. So, I feel needed. The audience is really happy to be there. They come backstage and they're really moved. Not all of them. A lot of them just come to figure out the tricks, and they think it's a big puzzle. But there's a good majority of them that really are happy to be there, and they look at you because they really have, challenges in their life, and you're taking them away from their challenges, or you're making them think about family in a different way, or their relationships in a different way, or just perspective. You give them perspective, and I think that makes me feel good about it. And I feel good that I'm doing the right job, and there's a greater meaning to it, and I think that's why I love it. And also to move the art form forward in every single category that I possibly can, and to, if the next generation of magicians can learn anything from what I've done, and say, oh my God, he did a lot of stuff. It's, a lot of stuff that I really, took a lot of effort to, and they can take it to the next level. We talk about Méliès all the time, Georges Méliès, how he was one of the fathers of cinema. He took over the Theatre Robert Houdin, did magic shows, a very fine magician, but then he discovered this new technique, which is cinema, with the Lumiere brothers, and he could tell stories. It's his idea to tell stories with that stuff. Oh my God, when Guillermo del Toro was here, he started to cry looking at this Méliès stuff, because I said, why are you crying? I knew exactly why he was crying. He's crying because it's the beginning of his life. Magic, the magic trick of the movies was just a train coming at you, or cows in the field, or whatever, a pastoral scene. Méliès said, we're going to tell Cinderella with that stuff. We're going to show a trip to the moon, and inspire people to go to the moon. 70 years later, after a trip to the moon, we landed on the friggin' moon. Pretty great. So if I can do that and kind of prototype the future a little bit with what I do, maybe people can move on and do some really good things and make those things reality. And I think that's a good point for what we do.
I want to ask you, if it's okay, a slightly challenging question. In 2006, you did the most amazing interview with a journalist from CNN called Richard Quest, and I heard you say some things in that interview I've never heard you say before. To quote you, I wasn't a very nice guy, I never thanked anybody. And then to link that to today, are you the happiest you've ever been today?
Well, I'm certainly happier now than I was then. I've learned to thank people, that's for sure. I have my moments of getting annoyed when people make repeat mistakes more than once, where it's a decision, not just an accident. But I'm much more peaceful today. I think, we have perspective of those things, and hopefully you get that without, losing your edge. And all the material that I'm doing in the show now, I think it's as good as what I did during flying time and doing Death Saw time. I think the material is as good, if not better. So I think I'm doing the right thing, the right job. And it's become a little bit more thinking about the audience and what's they're going to be left with. What's their takeaway? And I think that makes me happy.
When you look back at your career, what do you think was the biggest risk you ever took?
A lot of bad haircuts. It's every single thing's been a risk. Every single thing. I haven't done anything safe. Nothing's been safe. I've always dared to be bad or, take risks. Every single thing. Lately with the alien thing and the dinosaur. Dinosaurs doesn't count, actually. Dinosaur I know is going to work. That's, I know producing a big object. And then it's just about all the other things we talked about to break the barriers, to make it different than anything that's been done in our world. But the actual alien storytelling that's a risk, big risk. Flying was a big risk. Flying was really groundbreaking, and no one had ever done anything like that. And it really moved people and changed things a lot. So.
When we look at this amazing town that you've had a residency in for many, many years, how has Vegas changed over the years from a point of view of your show? Have you had to evolve a little bit with regards to the content of your show and what audiences expect when they come to this town?
I think, I used to tour all the time. So I would come here and it was one of the stops. When you don't tour, you have to have spaceships and, built-in stuff, So finally I decided I'm going to be able to be with my kids more and so forth. I can't travel. I can. We have a bunch of offers that eventually we'll do some here and there. But, I like sitting down. I like being able to do things of a bigger scale than a touring show. When you're sitting down in one place doing a residency, you can have those things that have a little bit more scale that wouldn't fit in a normal truck. So that's good. Vegas, was 6 hotels. Now there's 200 shows. People have a choice of 200 shows in any given night. 200. That's crazy. It's totally different, But I'm happy.
It didn't come out of the pot, but I feel we should touch on this because it's considered by some as the greatest illusion of all time, flying. What was that like to perform that the very first night? Do you remember the first night you performed it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was on tour, and we did it, and the audience went crazy. And, it changed everything. Something happened similar when we did the snow piece, when it snowed over the audience. We went to TGI Fridays afterwards and said, boy, that's really something. That's, But, just where it really affected emotionally, the emotion of having snow around the audience and feeling in the boy and all that, those levels. We knew we had something really amazing. But flying was one of those things that people went, oh my God. They really, you knew something changed. And we kept improving it and adding a eagle that we traveled with, Saker Falcon, flew with the Falcon and flew with the girl and all that stuff. And it was good. Yeah.
It's great to hear tonight that you're never going to retire and you're just going to keep going. I think that's amazing. I do wonder if you've ever thought about this, how you would like to be remembered. I mean, you're certainly in the ballpark with Houdini, where you're used as an example in TV shows and things like that over and over and over again. Have you given any thought to really what you'd like to be remembered for and how you'd like that to be?
What do you think? How should I be remembered?
As the greatest magician of all time, who has a body of work that's totally unparalleled by any magician in history, who absolutely changed the game. That's my opinion.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Here's $5 to you both of you. You have to split it. No, I think that's very nice. A lot of people collaborated throughout the years. I guess I'm good at pushing them to be at their best. I love Walt Disney. He did similar things. All the great film directors will always credit their teams for the hard work they did. I think just, to really care about the work. You hope people realize and don't forget all the details that you cared about. That would be nice if they remember some of it. But I think if you can inspire people to be at their best, that's what I got from all my idols. I was inspired to work harder by them, So if I can do that for other people, then I've done my job.
David, this has been the most amazing night of my life, and it's also been the greatest honour of my professional career to, like I said, I saw you as a kid that night in Birmingham. I was 11 years old, and my dad still tells the story about us driving home that night and how I wouldn't stop talking, and to think that all these years later I get to sit down with you and just ask you all these things I've always wanted to ask you and share it with the magic community. It's just been the most amazing one. So thank you so much for being on the Magicians Podcast. It's been incredible.
It's been an honour for me too.
Thank you.
Got my keys, got my coat, got my shoes on.
And do you know what? People showed me incredible kindness when I was a young magician. And this is a wonderful business. And if we can share some of that with them, that we were all kids and give a bit back to them, you know.
Like a moon, you pull me to the shore.
We had a child of 8 whose hand had been in a fist all his life. Within 10 days, his hand was open. And I said to him, "What did you think?" And he said, "Well, I wondered what was inside." Magic's this amazing, amazing, wonderful thing that stimulates the mind, creates connections between mind and body.
Oh, please, every time that I say goodbye, every time that I say goodbye, oh, I don't like leaving, and I don't believe it, every time that I say goodbye.
If you come out as a magician and you behave as though your knowledge of these things gives you a great exclusivity and a great insider's perspective, you will be insulting your audience. It is insulting to come out with that point of view.
Our dad, he died of cancer, and he got to know the idea about this illusion, but he never saw it.
All those times begging please in the doorway.
And then it went David Blaine. He was amazing. No one had seen anything like it before. And this guy walked into the shop and just was slagging him off. And I thought, why are you doing this? This guy's changed the face of magic. And I just thought, I can't be bothered with this anymore.
Every time that I say goodbye, oh, I don't like leaving, I don't believe it. Every time that I say goodbye.
Yeah, I'm a big Les Mis fan.
You are a big Les Mis
I'm a
fan.
huge Les Mis fan.
And when you think about that meaning something to you, and the fact you took a pack of cards and you did genuinely cut them anywhere,
Yeah.
and you look at the cards you cut to,
I suddenly realised.
and what is that?
24601 is Jean Valjean's prison number.
So that's just a different thing.
No, it means something.
And that means something.
That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I just saw a Les Mis trick. That's amazing. My sincere thanks to every magician who has sat in the hot seat on this season of the Magicians Podcast. I hope it has inspired you, the listener, to become a better magician. Please be nicer to each other and also remember to give something back to this wonderful industry. I would just like to finish by dedicating this season of the Magicians Podcast to our friend, Anthony Owen. Thanks very much for listening. My name's Richard Young. Goodbye, everybody.